found my 3 sons sitting at the dinner table in complete silence, heads bowed, waiting to pray before eating. In 4 years, I'd never seen anything like this. 23 nannies had quit. 23 trained professionals had walked through that door, looked at my boys, and decided they weren't worth the trouble. But this woman, this stranger with no training and nothing but faith, had done something impossible. She'd reached them. And what I was about to discover would change everything I thought I knew about love, family, and second chances. My name is David Parker, 43 years old, self-made billionaire, built my first company at 26 in a garage in San Jose, California, sold it for $40 million at 29, started 3 more companies after that, tech investments, real estate developments across California, from beachfront properties in Malibu to luxury condos in San Francisco, hotels in Los Angeles, shopping centers in San Diego. By 35, I had more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. Forbes put me on their cover. Business Week called me a visionary. TED invited me to speak. I had mansions, cars, private jets, everything money could buy. Everything except the one thing that actually mattered, peace in my own home. Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by. Comment where you're watching from. Someone near you might be watching too. Hit like, share, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss a story. Watch till the very end. The final twist will blow your mind. Let's jump right in. 4 years ago, my wife Jennifer left, didn't die, didn't have an accident, made a choice. Our triplet sons were 18 months old. Mason, Tyler, and Blake, 3 baby boys who went to sleep one night with a mother and woke up the next morning without one. I came downstairs that Tuesday morning and found a note on the kitchen counter next to her wedding ring. 4 sentences that destroyed everything. David, I can't do this anymore. I'm not strong enough to be what they need. I'm sorry, please don't look for me. That was it. 4 years of marriage, 3 children, a life we'd built together, all of it reduced to 4 sentences and an abandoned ring. I tried calling her, every number went to voicemail. I hired investigators. They found her 3 weeks later living in Seattle under her maiden name. She'd changed her hair, gotten a new job, started a completely different life. When my lawyer contacted her about custody, about the boys, about anything, she signed every paper without contest, gave up all parental rights, walked away completely. Like our sons had never existed. Mason, Tyler, and Blake were too young to understand, too young to ask where mommy went, but they weren't too young to feel it. Barbies know when someone disappears. They know when the person who's supposed to protect them isn't there anymore. They started crying more, sleeping less, clinging to anyone who came near them, then screaming when that person tried to leave the room. They were terrified, and I didn't know how to fix it. So I did what I always did when faced with a problem. I threw money at it. Hired the best nanny agency in California. They sent Maria, a woman with 2 degrees in child development and 15 years of experience. She lasted 6 days. The boys screamed every time she came near them, refused to eat anything she made, threw their bottles across the room. Then came Sophia, certified in early childhood education, specialized in trauma, lasted 9 days before she quit crying, telling me she couldn't handle the constant rejection. Then Rebecca, then Amanda, then Christine, one after another, each one more qualified than the last, each one leaving faster than the one before. By the time the boys turned 2, we were on nanny number 8. By 3, we'd gone through 16. By 4, 23 women had walked through that door and walked back out. And my sons had learned something terrible. They'd learned that everyone leaves eventually, so they made sure everyone left quickly, controlled the abandonment by causing it, pushed people away before they could be rejected again. They weren't being bad, they were being broken. The house became a war zone. Beautiful on the outside, my architect had won awards for the design, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Pacific Ocean, infinity pool, perfectly manicured gardens. But inside, it was just anger and pain living in expensive rooms. The boys would hide things: shoes, keys, phones, lock nannies out of bedrooms, pour juice on clothes, break toys and blame each other. scream for hours until the neighbors complained, even though the nearest house was half a mile away. I tried therapists, child psychologists, specialists in attachment disorders. They all said the same thing: the boys need stability, consistency, someone who won't leave. But everyone left. I was drowning, running a billion-dollar empire while my home life fell apart. Spending 16 hours a day in meetings and conference calls, making decisions that affected thousands of employees, then coming home to 3-4-year-old boys who looked at me like I was a stranger. Because I was a stranger, I'd been so focused on providing for them financially that I'd forgotten they needed more than money. They needed a father who was present, who knew their favorite foods and their bedtime routines, and which stuffed animal each one slept with. I'd failed them just as much as Jennifer had, just in a different way. 3 months ago, I hit rock bottom. Nanny, 23, quit on a Wednesday morning, just walked out mid-breakfast, left her resignation letter on the table, didn't even pack her things. The boys had put syrup in her shoes. It was the final straw. I called the agency, desperate. They said they had one more person, but she's unconventional, the director warned. She's not what you're used to. I was so tired of being used to things, so tired of qualified people who couldn't connect with my sons, so tired of watching hope die over and over. Send her, I said. What's one more disappointment? Her name was Bate Morrison, 37 years old, no college degree, no certifications in childcare. She'd spent the last 15 years cleaning houses in wealthy neighborhoods across Los Angeles, barely making enough to survive. She showed up at my door on a Thursday morning wearing a simple blue dress that had been washed so many times the fabric was thin. She carried one small bag and a worn Bible with pages falling out. The agency said, "You're looking for help with your sons," she said quietly when I opened the door. "I'm looking for a miracle," I said, not bothering to hide my exhaustion, "but I'll settle for someone who can last more than 2 weeks." Bate looked up at my house. The Pacific Ocean sparkled behind it. My Tesla and Range Rover sat in the circular driveway. Everything screamed wealth and success. She closed her eyes. I watched, confused, as her lips started moving. No sound, just movement. She was praying right there on my doorstep. Nobody had ever done that before. After a moment, she opened her eyes and looked directly at me, not at my house or my cars or any of the expensive things surrounding us. At me. "Mr. Parker, I'm not qualified for this job by any normal standard. I don't have training or degrees or experience with traumatized children. But 2 weeks ago, I had a dream about 3 little boys drowning in an ocean, and every time someone tried to pull them out, they'd fight and scream and drag that person under with them. In the dream, I walked into the water and just sat with them. Didn't try to rescue them, just sat. And slowly, one by one, they stopped fighting." She paused. When I woke up, I knew God was telling me something. Those boys don't need someone to save them. They need someone willing to drown with them until they're ready to swim. I should have closed the door, should have called the agency and demanded someone normal, should have sent her away. But something in her eyes stopped me, something that looked like understanding, like she knew what it felt like to drown. "Come in," I heard myself say. I led her to my office, gestured to a chair. She sat, placed her Bible on her lap, waited. "I need to be honest with you," I started. "My sons are difficult, not normal difficult. They've driven away 23 nannies in 3 years. They hide things, break things, scream for hours. They're angry and hurt, and they don't trust anyone." "I understand." "Do you? Because every person who's come through that door has said the same thing. They understand. They're prepared. They've dealt with difficult children before, and every single one of them quit." Bate was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked, "What happened to their mother?" The question landed like a punch. Most people avoided asking, danced around it, pretended not to wonder. "She left," I said flatly, 4 years ago. The boys were Barbies, she just walked away. "And you've been carrying this alone ever since?" It wasn't a question. I felt something crack in my chest. "I've tried everything," I said. Every expert, every technique, every method, nothing works. My sons are, I stopped, hatting the words, my sons are out of control. Bate shook her head gently. Your sons aren't out of control, Mr. Parker. They're terrified. There's a difference. I stared at her. Hurt people, she continued. It's not meanness, it's self-protection. Your boys learn that everyone leaves eventually, so they make everyone leave quickly, control the pain by causing it. That's exactly what the therapist said. Then why haven't the therapists been able to fix it? Because you can't fix trust. You can only earn it, and earning it takes time, takes staying when leaving would be easier, takes sitting in the hurt instead of trying to make it go away. I looked at this woman in her faded dress with her falling apart Bible, and wondered if she was crazy or if she was the only sane person I'd met in 3 years. I'm offering 3 days, I said, 3 days to see if you can handle them. If you last that long, we'll discuss making it permanent. Bates smiled, but there was something sad in it. I don't need 3 days to know if I can handle them, Mr. Parker. I need 3 days to start earning their trust. Before I could respond, a crash came from upstairs. Loud, deliberate. Then Mason's voice, angry. Tyler took my truck. Another crash. Blake started screaming. That's them, I said, closing my eyes. I know. Bates stood up, smoothed her dress. Should we go meet them? You don't want to run away first. She looked at me with those steady eyes. I didn't come here to run, Mr. Parker. I came here to stay. And something about the way she said, it made me actually believe her. We walked upstairs together toward the chaos. The boys' playroom looked like a tornado had hit it. Toys scattered everywhere, books torn, a lamp overturned, crayon marks on the walls spelling words I'd tried to wash off a dozen times. And in the center of it all, my 3 sons stood waiting. Mason in front, arms crossed, 4 years old with Jennifer's blonde hair and my green eyes, the leader, the one who organized the chaos. Tyler beside him, fists already clenched, the fighter, the one who expressed hurt through anger because anger felt safer than sadness. Blake at the back, taking that deep breath I recognized, the screamer, the one who'd learned that loud enough noise made people leave faster. They'd done this 23 times before, stood in formation, showed the new person exactly what they were walking into, watched them try to hide their shock, watched them fail. Boys, I started, this is. But Bate walked past me, stepped into the room slowly, not afraid, not angry, just present. She looked at the destruction, at the torn books, at the crayon words on the wall, at 3 small faces staring back at her with eyes that dared her to judge them. And then she smiled. Not a fake smile, not a nervous one, a real smile, warm, like she just walked into something beautiful instead of something broken. Mason's eyes narrowed. What are you smiling at? At you 3, Bates said simply. We're not cute, Tyler snapped. We're horrible, everyone says so. Bate tilted her head slightly, then everyone must not be looking very closely. Blake's breath hitched. The scream was coming, I could see it building. But Bate did something then that stopped him. She knelt down, got down on her knees right there on the messy floor so she was at their level. Eye to eye, equal. She looked at Mason first, really looked, like she could see past the crossed arms and hard face to the scared boy underneath. Then Tyler, past the anger. Then Blake, past the scream he was holding in. You are not too much, she said quietly. You are not too broken, and you are not unlovable. The words hung in the air. Mason's arms dropped slightly. You don't know us. Not yet, Bate agreed, but I'd like to. Blake's mouth opened. The scream was right there. But before it could come out, Bate started humming. Low, gentle, an old song, the kind that sounds like safety. She stood up slowly, still humming, and began picking up toys. One at a time, no rush, no urgency, just steady movement and that soft, unafraid sound. Blake's mouth stayed open, but no scream came. The boys stared. Nobody had ever hummed before. Nobody had ever just started cleaning up like it didn't matter that they'd made the mess. Maid picked up a stuffed bear, set it gently on the shelf, picked up some blocks, stacked them carefully. "I think this room is messy," she said softly, still humming between words, "because your hearts are messy, and that's okay. Messy hearts just need time and love to get clean again." Tyler's fists unclenched slightly. Blake took one small step forward. Mason stood frozen, watching her with something dangerous in his eyes, something that looked like hope trying to survive. Maid kept picking up toys, kept humming like she had all the time in the world, like she wasn't afraid of them, like she wasn't planning to leave. After a long moment, Blake walked over to her, reached out with one small hand, touched the hem of her dress, testing, seeing if she was real. Maid looked down at him and smiled. "Hi, sweetheart." Blake didn't answer, just held on to her dress like it was an anchor. From the doorway, I watched something I'd never seen before. My sons were listening. Maid turned to face all three of them. "We start fresh tomorrow. Tonight, you sleep in clean rooms. I'll help you tidy up if you want." "You'll help us?" Mason's voice was so quiet I almost missed it. "Of course," Bates said. "That's what family does." "You're not family," Tyler said, but his voice had lost its edge. "Not yet," Bates said gently, "but maybe we will be." And then something impossible happened. The boys started picking up toys. Not because they were told to, not because they were afraid of punishment, just because someone had offered to help them instead of commanding them to do it alone. I leaned against the doorframe, my throat tight. 23 people had tried to control my sons. This woman was the first one who tried to understand them. That night I stood outside Bates' room. She was kneeling beside the bed, Bible open, lips moving in silent prayer. I started to back away, but she looked up. "They're good boys, Mr. Parker," she said softly. "They're just scared." "Scared of what?" "Loving someone who will leave." I felt those words hit deep. "That's what I'm afraid of too." Bate nodded. "I know, but fear doesn't heal anything, only love does." She closed her Bible and looked at me with those calm eyes. "Get some rest, Mr. Parker. Tomorrow's a new day." I went to bed that night with something unfamiliar stirring in my chest, something that felt dangerously close to peace. Day one started before sunrise. I woke to a sound I hadn't heard in years, someone moving in the kitchen, quiet, careful, not trying to wake anyone. I came downstairs and found Bate at the stove, wearing the same blue dress from yesterday, hair pulled back, humming that same soft song. She was making breakfast, not fancy, just scrambled eggs and toast, simple things that smelled like home. "You're up early," I said. Bate turned, smiled. "Old habit. My grandmother used to say the morning is when you set the tone for the whole day." I watched her work, steady hands, no wasted movement. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, just making food with care. One by one, the boys appeared. Mason first, suspicious, watching from the doorway. Tyler, drawn by the smell. Blake last, rubbing his eyes. Bate didn't make a big deal of it, just kept humming, kept cooking, set 3 plates at the table like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Would you like to sit with me?" she asked, not a command, an invitation. The boys looked at each other, another test. Mason sat first, the others followed. Bate placed food in front of each of them, not fancy, not perfect, just warm and made with attention. They ate in silence, watching her, waiting for her to change, to get angry, to show them who she really was. But she just ate her toast and smiled when Blake dropped his fork. "Why are you being nice?" Mason finally asked. "You're just going to leave anyway." Bates set down her coffee, looked him straight in the eyes. "I'm nice because that's who I am, and I'm not leaving today." "What about tomorrow?" "I'll be here tomorrow too." "You can't promise that," Mason said. "Nobody can." "You're right," Bates said quietly. "I can't promise forever. I can only promise today, but I've never broken a promise yet." Tyler stared at his plate. Our mom promised too. The words hung there, heavy and painful. Bate reached across the table, didn't touch him, just reached. I'm not your mom, Tyler, I'm just someone who showed up, and I'm choosing to stay, one day at a time. Something shifted in the room, small but real. The rest of the day, I watched from a distance, watched Bate straighten a family photo that had been knocked crooked, watched her redirect Tyler when he started to throw something. Can you help me carry this instead? Watched her sit outside Blake's hiding spot, waiting patiently until he came out on his own. Watched her let Mason cry without trying to fix it, then offer him water when he was done. She didn't control them, she just met them where they were. That evening, I reviewed security footage in my office, rewound, watched her patients frame by frame. Who was this woman? Day 2 started differently. I left early for meetings downtown, investors flying in from New York, contracts to sign, the kind of day I couldn't cancel. But I couldn't focus. Sat in the back of conference rooms checking my phone, no calls from home, no emergencies. That should have been good news, but it made me nervous. I made it until noon, then I told my assistant to reschedule everything. I need to go home. The whole drive back, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I pulled into the driveway, the house looked quiet, too quiet. I opened the front door, silence. Then I heard something, giggling, children giggling. I followed the sound to the backyard and stopped. Bate was playing with my sons, actually playing. They'd built a fort out of blankets and chairs, and all 4 of them were crammed inside it, making shadow puppets on the fabric walls. Blake saw me first. Daddy, look, we made a castle. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. Just stood there watching my 3 sons, who hadn't played happily in 4 years, look completely, absolutely joyful. Bate crawled out of the fort, stood up, smiled at me. They're teaching me how to be a dragon, she said. Apparently, I'm not very good at roaring. The boys tumbled out behind her. Show him, Daddy, show him our castle. I sat down on the grass, let them show me every corner of their blanket fort, listened to them, explain the rules of the game they'd invented, watched them include Bate in everything like she'd always been there. That night after the boys were in bed, I found Bate in the kitchen. How did you do this? I asked. How did you reach them in 2 days when 23 other people couldn't do it in months? Bate was quiet for a moment. Mr. Parker, can I tell you something? Please. 15 years ago, I had a daughter. Her name was Grace. I went very still. She was my whole world, Bate continued, her voice soft, smart, funny, loved to sing. She'd wake up every morning and the first thing she'd do was sing. Didn't matter if she knew the words. She'd just make up sounds and call it a song. Bate's eyes glistened. When she was 6, she got sick, leukemia. We fought it for 3 years, every treatment, every hospital visit, every prayer. A tear slid down her cheek. She died 2 weeks after her 9th birthday, holding my hand, still trying to sing, even though she could barely breathe. I felt my chest tighten. Bate, I'm so sorry. After she died, I didn't want to live anymore, lost my job, lost my apartment, spent a year just existing, not living, just taking up space. What changed? My sister found me one day. I'd taken pills, too many pills. She got me to the hospital in time, made me promise to try, just try to keep living. Bate wiped her eyes. That's when I started cleaning houses, didn't have to talk to anyone, just work, just survive. Did that for 14 years, 14 years of just existing. Then 2 weeks ago I had that dream about your boys, and I knew God kept me alive for this, not for my daughter, for yours, to love the children I could still save. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. So when you ask how I reached them, Bate said gently, it's because I understand what it feels like to be so broken you think you're beyond fixing. Your boys aren't too much for me, Mr. Parker. They're exactly what I've been preparing for my whole life. We sat in that kitchen, 2 broken people who'd lost so much, understanding each other in the quiet. Thank you, I finally whispered, for coming, for staying, for loving them when I didn't know how. You do know how, Bates said. You're just afraid, but love and fear can't live in the same house forever. Eventually, you have to choose. Day 3, the day that changed everything. I had a presentation downtown. Major investors, millions of dollars on the line, the kind of meeting you don't cancel. But I couldn't focus. Sat in the back of the car checking my phone every 30 seconds. No calls, no texts, no emergencies. 3 days, she'd lasted 3 days, that was longer than most. But the real test always came when they thought they'd won, when they relaxed. That's when my son struck hardest. I made it through the morning, shook hands, signed papers, smiled at people who thought I had my life together. By noon, I couldn't take it anymore. I need to go home, I told my driver. The whole drive back, my heart pounded. I pulled into the driveway. The house looked quiet, too quiet. I opened the front door. Silence, not the silence of destruction, not the silence of hiding, just silence. Then I heard something, voices, soft, coming from the dining room. I walked slowly down the hall, each step careful, like I was afraid of what I'd find. When I reached the doorway, I stopped. And what I saw broke something open inside me. My 3 sons were sitting at the dining room table, not fighting, not screaming, not destroying, just sitting. Bates stood at the head of the table. She'd made lunch, simple food, sandwiches, soup, but the table was set carefully, napkins folded, glasses filled with water. And all 3 boys had their heads bowed, hands folded in their laps. Bates' voice was gentle, clear. Thank you for this food, thank you for this home, and thank you for these 3 boys who are learning they don't have to be afraid anymore. I couldn't move, my throat closed up, my vision blurred. In 4 years, I'd never seen this, never seen my sons sit peacefully, never seen them bow their heads, never seen them look safe, like a family. Tears started streaming down my face, and I couldn't stop them. Bate continued, her voice steady and warm. Thank you that broken things can be made whole, that angry hearts can learn to be soft, that children who have been hurt can learn to trust again. Blake lifted his head slightly, saw me standing there. Daddy, his voice was small, concerned. Are you okay? I tried to answer but couldn't. My chest was too tight. The words wouldn't come. I just stood there shaking, tears falling. All 3 boys were looking at me now, confused, maybe a little scared. Bate looked up, her eyes met mine, and in that moment she understood everything I couldn't say. She smiled gently. Mr. Parker, would you like to join us? I nodded, managed to move my feet, walked to the table like I was walking through a dream. I sat down, my sons on one side, this woman I'd known for 3 days on the other. And for the first time since Jennifer left, we ate a meal together in peace. No one spoke, they just ate, but the silence wasn't empty anymore. It was full, full of something I couldn't name but could feel in every corner of my chest. When Blake knocked over his water, I expected chaos, expected Mason to yell, expected everything to fall apart. But Bate just stood up, got a towel, wiped it up. It's okay, sweetheart, accidents happen. And Blake smiled, actually smiled. I watched my son's face light up, and something inside me shattered completely. This wasn't about rules or discipline or behavior management. This was about love, real love, the kind that didn't quit when things got messy, the kind that stayed when staying was hard, the kind that saw 3 broken boys and said you're worth it. After lunch, the boys went to play, quietly, no fights, no screaming. I stayed at the table. Bates started clearing dishes. I don't understand, I finally said, my voice rough. How did you do that? Bate paused, looked at me with those gentle eyes. I didn't do anything, Mr. Parker. I just loved them. That's all they ever needed. I put my head in my hands, because she was right, and I'd spent 4 years trying everything except that. The weeks that followed were the best of my life. The boys thrived, laughed, played, slept through the night, started talking about their feelings instead of destroying things. And slowly, carefully, They let me in, started asking me to read bedtime stories, started including me in games, started trusting that I wasn't going anywhere. Bait made it possible, created a space where healing could happen, where love felt safe. And somewhere in all of that, I fell in love with her. Not the desperate love of someone drowning grabbing onto the nearest solid thing. Real love. The kind built on watching someone show up every day even when it's hard. The kind that grows from respect and admiration and partnership. 3 months after Bait arrived, I was putting the boys to bed when Mason grabbed my hand. "Daddy, can Bait be our new mommy?" My heart stopped. What? She takes care of us, she loves us, she stays even when we're bad. That's what mommies do, right? I looked at Tyler and Blake. They were nodding, hopeful. "Do you want that?" I asked carefully. "Do you want Bait to be part of our family forever?" "Yes," all three said together. "Absolutely yes." I went downstairs, found Bait in the kitchen. "We need to talk." She looked up, saw my face. "What happened?" "The boys just asked if you could be their mother." Bait's eyes filled with tears. "Oh." I sat down next to her. "Bait, when you walked into my life 3 months ago, I thought you were crazy, thought there was no way someone with no training could handle my sons. I was wrong. You didn't just handle them, you healed them." "Mr. Parker." "David, please, just David." She smiled slightly. "David. You gave them back their childhood. You gave me back my sons. You gave all of us hope when we'd forgotten what that felt like." I paused. "And somewhere in all of that, you became the most important person in this house, to all of us." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying the boys aren't the only ones who fell in love with you. I'm saying I wake up every morning grateful you're here. I'm saying when I think about the future now, I see you in it. I see all of us together, a real family, the kind we were always supposed to be." Bait was crying now. "I came here broken, David. 3 months ago I was barely surviving, living with my sister, sleeping on her couch, wondering if my life would ever mean anything again. Then I had that dream and thought maybe, just maybe, God was giving me one more chance to matter." "You matter," I said firmly. "You matter to 3 little boys who finally believe someone will stay. You matter to a man who forgot what it felt like to have peace in his own home. You matter to me." She looked at me with those gentle eyes that had seen my family at our worst and chosen to love us anyway. "So what do we do now?" I took her hand. "We build something beautiful from all these broken pieces. We show those 3 boys that families aren't just born, they're chosen. We prove that second chances are real and love is stronger than fear." Bates squeezed my hand. "I'd like that." 6 months later, we stood in our backyard under lights the boys had helped hang. All our friends and family were there watching. Mason, Tyler, and Blake stood beside us in matching suits they'd actually wanted to wear, holding rings they'd helped pick out. The officiant asked if I took Bait to be my wife, to love and honor and cherish. I said yes before he even finished the question. He asked Bait the same thing. She looked at me, then at the boys, then back at me. "I came here to help 3 children," she said softly. "Instead, I found 4 people who saved me, so yes, 1,000 times yes." When we kissed, the triplets cheered, loud and joyful and completely unafraid. At the reception, Tyler pulled me aside. "Daddy, are you happy?" "Happier than I've ever been, buddy." "Why?" "Because you're smiling, like really smiling. I haven't seen you do that since before Mommy left." I knelt down so we were eye to eye. "You know what I learned? Sometimes the person you're supposed to be with isn't the person you started with. Sometimes they show up later, when you're ready, when you need them most." Bait showed up exactly when we needed her. "So she's really our mom now. If you want her to be." Tyler hugged me tight. "We want her to be, forever." That night after everyone left, and the boys were finally asleep, Bait and I sat on the porch swing watching stars. "You know what's amazing?" I said. "What?" "A year ago, I had everything except the one thing that mattered. Now, I have exactly what I needed all along." "Which is?" A family that chose each other, kids who aren't afraid anymore, a partner who sees the broken parts and stays anyway, peace in my own house. Bate leaned her head on my shoulder. I was so lost, David, so convinced my life was over, that I'd never matter to anyone again. Then 3 little boys and their father showed me that sometimes our biggest purpose is hiding in the last place we'd ever look. Where's that? In the mess we're afraid to enter. In the chaos we want to fix instead of sit with. In the people everyone else has given up on. We sat there in the quiet, in the peace, in the home we'd built from all the broken pieces. Inside, Mason woke up from a bad dream, called out. Bate went to him without hesitation. I followed, stood in the doorway watching her sit on his bed, stroke his hair, sing softly until he fell back asleep. When she came out, she saw me watching. He's okay, she whispered, just needed to know someone was here. Someone will always be here, I said. That's what family means. We walked to our room together, to the life we were building, to the future we'd almost missed because we'd both stopped believing in second chances. That night the Parker house was full of love that had been earned through patience and pain, full of laughter that had been fought for one difficult day at a time, full of 3 boys who'd learned that being afraid doesn't mean you stop hopping, full of 2 adults who discovered that sometimes the greatest gift isn't getting what you planned for, it's receiving what you actually needed. And somewhere out there, maybe Jennifer saw the family her sons had become and understood that leaving doesn't always destroy everything. Sometimes it creates space for healing to begin. 3 years passed. Bate and I stood in that same backyard watching Mason, Tyler, and Blake play with their baby sister Grace, named after Bate's daughter who'd taught her that love is a choice you make every single day, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. The boys were 7 now, confident, happy, secure in the knowledge that their family was permanent, that love didn't have an expiration date, that home wasn't a place you could lose, but a feeling you carried inside you. How did we get here? Bate asked, holding my hand, watching our children play. We took a chance on each other when everyone said we shouldn't. We chose love when fear seemed safer. We built something new from everything that broke us. Best decision I ever made, she said. The boys ran over, Grace toddling behind them. Can we tell her? Mason asked excitedly. Tell her what? Blake grinned. That you were the worst cook ever when you first got here, but we loved you anyway. Bate laughed, scooped up Grace. Is that true? Completely true, I said. Your first dinner nearly poisoned us all. But you stayed, Tyler said seriously, even though you weren't perfect. That's how we knew it was real. And there it was, the lesson we'd all learned together. Love isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. It's about staying when leaving would be easier. It's about choosing each other again and again, especially on the days when it's hard. Grace pulled on Bates' sleeve. Mama, can we pray now? Bates' eyes filled with tears. Even after 3 years, hearing that word still broke her open in the best way. Of course, sweetheart. We all gathered in a circle right there in the backyard. The same backyard where we'd gotten married, where we'd celebrated birthdays and holidays, where we'd built a life from broken pieces. Mason reached for my hand, Tyler took Bates, Blake held Grace, we formed a circle connected. Bates' voice was soft. Thank you for second chances. Thank you for broken people who learned how to be whole together. Thank you for 3 boys who taught me that loving again was worth the risk. Thank you for a man who learned that being vulnerable is the bravest thing you can do. Mason squeezed my hand. Thank you that our first mom leaving made room for our real mom to find us. I looked at my son, stunned. When did you get so wise? He shrugged, smiled. Bate taught me. She said sometimes God uses the worst things to bring the best things. That doesn't make the bad things good, but it means nothing is wasted. Tyler added, and thank you that Dad stopped being scared. That was a big one. Everyone laughed, even me, because he was right. Fear had almost cost me everything. Blake, always the quiet one, said simply, thank you for family, the real kind, the kind that stays. Grace, not quite understanding, but wanting to participate, shouted, "Thank you for cookies." We all burst out laughing. Bate kissed the top of her head. "Yes, baby, thank you for cookies too." That night, after the kids were in bed, I found a letter on my desk. Unfamiliar handwriting, no return address. My hands shook as I opened it. "David, I know I have no right to contact you after all these years, no right to ask anything of you or the boys, but I saw a photo of your family online. Someone from your company shared it, your wedding to Bate, the boys looking so happy, so whole. I need you to know something. Leaving wasn't about you. It wasn't about Mason or Tyler or Blake. It was about me being so broken I couldn't see past my own pain. I was drowning in postpartum depression, in anxiety, in thoughts I was too ashamed to voice. I thought they'd be better off without me, that you'd find someone better, someone who could be what they needed. I was wrong. But looking at that photo, I see that somehow, impossibly, it worked out. You found Bate, the boys found healing. You built something beautiful. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking to be part of their lives. I gave up that right when I walked away. I just wanted you to know that I'm grateful. Grateful that you didn't let my brokenness break them. Grateful that you found someone who could love them the way I should have. Tell them, if you ever think it's right, that their first mom loved them but couldn't stay, and their real mom loved them and chose to. Jennifer. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. All these years, I'd been angry, bitter, unable to understand how someone could walk away from their children. But this letter, it didn't erase the pain, didn't make what she did okay, but it added context, added humanity to the woman I'd turned into a villain in my mind. Bate found me there, still holding the letter. What is it? I handed it to her, watched her read, watched tears fill her eyes. She's right, you know, Bate said softly, about me being their real mom. Not because she wasn't, but because I chose to be, every single day. What do I do with this? I asked. Do I tell the boys? Bate sat down next to me. Not now, maybe not ever. That's a decision you make when they're older, when they can understand nuance, when they can hold both truths at once. Both truths. That their first mother loved them but couldn't stay, and their real mother loves them and will never leave. Both things can be true. I pulled her close. How did I get so lucky? Bate laughed softly. Luck had nothing to do with it. You hired a crazy woman who showed up with nothing but faith and stubbornness. Best hiring decision I ever made. We sat there in the quiet, holding each other. Outside, the California night was clear. Stars scattered across the sky like promises. The next morning, Mason found me in the kitchen making breakfast. I'd learned how to cook in the years since Bate arrived. Not as well as her, but enough. Enough to show love through scrambled eggs and slightly burnt toast. Dad, Mason said, can I ask you something? Of course, buddy. Do you ever think about our first mom? The question stopped me cold. I set down the spatula, turned to face him. Sometimes. Why? He shrugged, not quite meeting my eyes. I don't remember her. None of us do, but sometimes I wonder if she thinks about us. I knelt down so we were eye level. I think she does. I think she probably thinks about you every single day. Then why didn't she come back? I took a breath. Sometimes people break in ways that make it impossible for them to be what others need. It doesn't mean they don't care. It just means they're too broken to show it. Is that a grown-up way of saying she didn't love us enough? No, I said firmly. It's a grown-up way of saying her love got buried under so much pain she couldn't find it anymore. But that was her struggle, Mason. Not your fault. Never your fault. Mason was quiet for a long moment. I'm glad Bate found us. Me too, buddy. Me too. Do you love her, like really love her? More than I knew it was possible to love someone. Good, Mason smiled, because we do too, and I think she needs us just as much as we need her. Out of the mouths of babes, my 7-year-old son understood something it had taken me decades to learn. Love isn't about need or transaction. It's about choosing to show up for each other, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That afternoon, I took Bate to the beach. The same beach where I'd proposed, the same beach where we'd gotten married, the same beach where we brought the kids every Sunday. We walked along the shore, hand in hand, watching waves crash against the sand. "I got a letter from Jennifer," I said. Bate stopped walking, turned to face me. What did it say? That she was wrong, that she's glad we found each other, that she's grateful the boys have you. Bate's eyes filled with tears. That must have been hard for her to write. I nodded. I think I need to forgive her. Not for her, for me, for the boys. Carrying anger for 4 years is exhausting. Bate reached up, touched my face. "That's the bravest thing you've said." "It doesn't change anything," I continued. "Doesn't mean I want her in our lives. Doesn't mean the boys need to know her. It just means I'm letting go of the bitterness, making space for peace." "That's what healing looks like," Bates said softly. "Not forgetting, not pretending it didn't hurt, just choosing not to let the hurt define you anymore." We stood there on that beach, two broken people who'd found each other in the wreckage, who'd built something beautiful from all the shattered pieces, who'd learned that family isn't about biology or obligation, it's about choice, daily choice, moment-by-moment choice to show up and love even when it's hard. 5 years later. Mason, Tyler, and Blake were 10 years old now. Grace was 5, and Bate was holding our newest addition, 2-month-old Joy, named after the daughter she'd lost, named after the joy she'd found again. We stood in the same dining room where I'd first seen my sons bow their heads and pray, where everything had changed. The boys were setting the table for Sunday dinner, a tradition Bate had started. Every Sunday, no matter how busy life got, we ate together, talked together, connected. Mason carefully folded napkins the way Bate had taught him. Tyler arranged flowers in the center of the table, flowers he'd grown himself in the garden. Blake was helping Grace wash her hands, patient and gentle. I watched them and marveled. These were the same boys who'd driven away 23 nannies, the same boys who'd been labeled difficult, broken, beyond help. But they weren't broken, they'd never been broken, just hurt, and hurt can heal when you give it time and love and patience. Bate came up beside me, Joy sleeping in her arms. "Look at them," she whispered. "Look at what's possible when you don't give up." I pulled her close, kissed her forehead. "You did this. You saw them when everyone else saw problems. You loved them when everyone else walked away." "No," Bate said firmly, "we did this. You gave them stability, safety, a father who learned how to be present. I just helped create space for healing. But you, David, you did the hardest work. You faced your own fear and pain and chose to change." The boys called us to the table. Dinner was ready, nothing fancy, spaghetti and meatballs, garlic bread, salad, but it was made with love and eaten with joy. We sat down together. Mason reached for my hand, Tyler took Bates, Blake held Grace's. We formed a circle, connected. Mason, now old enough to lead, spoke. "Thank you for this family. Thank you for second chances. Thank you for a dad who learned how to love us and a mom who chose to stay." Tyler added, "Thank you for teaching us that broken doesn't mean unfixable." Blake, always thoughtful, said, "And thank you that our story didn't end with sadness, that it just began there." Grace, 5 years old and full of joy, shouted, "Thank you for family and cookies and baby Joy." We laughed. Bate wiped tears from her eyes. I squeezed Mason's hand. And sitting there in that dining room, surrounded by children I'd almost lost to fear, holding the hand of the woman who'd saved us all, I understood something profound. The worst day of my life. The day Jennifer left had led to the best thing in my life, not because the pain was good, not because the abandonment didn't matter, but because it created space for something truer, deeper, more real. It led me to Bate, led my sons to the mother they were meant to have, led all of us to understand that family isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's about showing up every single day and choosing love even when love is difficult. That night after the kids were in bed, I stood in the doorway of each room, watched Mason sleep with a book on his chest, watched Tyler sprawled across his bed, peaceful, Watched Blake curled up with the stuffed bear Bate had given him his first week with us. Watched Grace sleeping in her princess bed, thumb in her mouth. Watched Joy in her crib, tiny fists curled, breathing softly. 5 children, 5 reasons to keep going, 5 hearts that had taught me what love really means. Bate came up behind me, wrapped her arms around my waist. Happy. Beyond happy, grateful, amazed, humbled. We walked to our room together, crawled into bed. She fit perfectly against my side, her head on my chest, my arm around her shoulders. Do you ever wonder what your life would have been like if I hadn't shown up? She asked quietly. Every day, I said honestly. And every day I'm grateful I don't have to live in that reality. I almost didn't come, you know. The morning I was supposed to come to your house, I woke up terrified, thought maybe I'd heard wrong. Maybe it wasn't God telling me to go. Maybe I was just a broken woman grasping at purpose. What made you come anyway? Bate was quiet for a moment. I realized that faith isn't about being certain. It's about taking the next step even when you're not. So I took the step, and it led me here, to you, to them, to this life I never could have imagined. I kissed the top of her head. Thank you for being brave enough to take that step. Thank you for being brave enough to let me in. We fell asleep like that, 2 people who'd been broken in different ways, who'd found each other at exactly the right time, who'd built a family not from biology, but from choice. And in the morning, we'd wake up and do it all again. Make breakfast, help with homework, drive kids to school, do laundry, have conversations, solve problems, love each other through the mundane and magnificent moments that make up a life. Because that's what family is, not the Instagram perfect moments, not the highlight reel, but the daily choice to show up, to stay, to love even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. 10 years later. Mason, Tyler, and Blake were 20 years old now, home from college for Thanksgiving. Grace was 15, full of teenage attitude and fierce love. Joy was 10, curious and kind. We gathered in that same dining room, the room where everything changed, where 3 terrified boys had learned to pray, where a broken family had learned to heal. Bate's hair was graying now, laugh lines around her eyes. She was more beautiful than the day I met her. I was 53, successful still, but success meant something different now. It wasn't about money or buildings or Forbes covers. It was about coming home to people who loved me, about being present for moments that mattered. Mason stood up, glass in hand. I want to say something. We all quieted, looked at him, this young man who'd once been so angry, so hurt, so convinced everyone would leave. 20 years ago, he started, we were 3 kids who'd lost all hope, who thought we were too broken to love, too difficult to keep. Tyler nodded. We drove away 23 people in less than a year. We were angry and scared, and we didn't know how to be anything else. Blake continued, and then one day, a woman showed up with nothing but faith and love. She didn't have training or degrees or any of the things people said she needed. She just had heart. Mason looked at Bate, tears in his eyes. You didn't just become our mom, you taught us what love actually means. You showed us that family is about choice, not biology, that healing is possible if you're willing to sit in the hurt long enough to find your way through it. Tyler raised his glass. To the woman who chose us when we were unchosen, who saw worth when everyone else saw problems, who taught us that broken is just another word for human. Blake added, and to Dad, who learned how to be present, who faced his own pain and fear so we could heal, who gave us stability and safety and a foundation to build our lives on. Grace, not to be left out, stood up, and to my siblings, who taught me what it means to fight for each other, to my parents, who showed me that love is a verb, not a feeling. Joy, 10 years old and wise beyond her years, said simply, I'm grateful I got to be part of this story from the beginning, instead of having to fight my way into it, like everyone else did. We all laughed through tears. Bate stood up, Joy in her arms. I came to this house 20 years ago dying inside. I'd lost my daughter, lost my purpose, lost my will to live, and I found 4 people who needed me just as much as I needed them. She looked at each of the boys. You didn't save me. We saved each other. That's what family does. We take turns being strong when the others are weak. We take turns carrying each other. We take turns being the reason someone else keeps going. I stood up, pulled Bait close. 20 years ago, I thought my life was over. My wife had left. My sons were unreachable. I was drowning in guilt and failure. Then a woman with no qualifications and infinite faith showed up and changed everything. I looked around the table. At Mason, studying engineering, planning to build things that help people. At Tyler, in art school, using creativity to process emotion the way Bait had taught him. At Blake, studying psychology, wanting to help other kids like he'd been helped. At Grace, fiercely protecting everyone she loves. At Joy, growing up in a house full of love instead of fear. This is what second chances look like, I said. This is what happens when you don't give up. When you choose love over fear. When you build family from choice instead of obligation. We raised our glasses to family, to healing, to second chances, to love that doesn't quit. That night, after everyone was in bed, Bait and I sat on the porch swing. The same porch swing where we'd sat 20 years ago, where we dreamed about the future we were now living. We did it, Bait whispered. We actually did it. We raised 3 broken boys who are now remarkable men. We gave them a childhood they can be proud of instead of ashamed of. We showed them that healing is possible. And we healed ourselves in the process, Bait added. I came here empty, you were drowning, and somehow, impossibly, we filled each other up. I pulled her close. Do you ever regret it? The hard days, the sleepless nights, the years of patience it took. Never, not once. Because every hard day led to this, to them, to us, to a life I couldn't have imagined even in my wildest dreams. We sat there in the California night, stars scattered across the sky, the ocean waves crashing in the distance, the house behind us full of people we loved, people who loved us back. And I realized something profound. The day Jennifer left had felt like the end of everything, like the worst thing that could possibly happen. And in many ways it was. It was devastating and painful, and it left scars that never fully healed. But it also created space. Space for Bait to enter. Space for our family to form. Space for all of us to learn what real love actually means. Not the fairy tale kind, not the easy kind, but the kind that shows up every single day. The kind that stays when leaving would be easier. The kind that says you're worth it, even when you can't believe it yourself. That's the kind of love that built our family. That's the kind of love that heals. That's the kind of love that lasts. 20 years ago, I was a billionaire with nothing that mattered. Today, I'm a man with everything that does. A wife who chose me, children who trust me, a home filled with peace instead of pain. And it all started with 3 broken boys, 23 failed attempts, and 1 woman brave enough to show up with nothing but faith. Bait squeezed my hand. What are you thinking about? How grateful I am for all of it, even the painful parts, because they led me here. To this porch swing. I smiled. To this life, to you, to them, to everything that matters. Bait rested her head on my shoulder. That's the thing about broken things. When you put them back together carefully, with love and patience, they're often stronger than they were before. Not despite the cracks, because of them. We sat there until the stars faded, until the sun started rising, until a new day began. And in that house behind us, 5 children slept safely, knowing they were loved, knowing they belonged, knowing that this family, built from broken pieces and daily choices, was permanent. That's the power of love, not the romantic kind you see in movies, the real kind, the kind that shows up, the kind that stays, the kind that says, I choose you every single day. The kind that builds families from chaos, that creates hope from despair, that proves, again and again, that broken is not the same as beyond repair. 20 years ago, I hired a woman with no qualifications to care for my impossible sons. Today she's my wife, the mother of my children, the reason our family exists. And every day, I thank God for the faith that brought her to my door, for the courage that made her stay, for the love that healed us all. Because in the end, that's what this story is about. Not about a billionaire or difficult children or the nanny who saved them. It's about broken people finding each other, choosing each other, healing together. It's about family, the real kind, the chosen kind, the forever kind. And that, more than any amount of money or success, is what makes life worth living. What you just saw is only a piece of the bigger story. In the next video, a twist no one saw coming will be revealed. Make sure you're here for it. I'd love to hear what you would have done in this situation. Drop your thoughts below. I read every single comment. Thanks so much for watching. Show some love by liking, subscribing, and sharing this with someone who needs to see it.